Oh, hello. Today I'm going to be responding to a voice note from one of my dear friends. While my love is going to turn down the music or it's going to shut the door. It's actually today's my mom's 75th birthday. And so we found some CDs in the secondhand shop down the street. And this is specifically American crooners, and it just reminds me of growing up in a household with boomers, baby boomers, old, they're older Filipinos. Anyways, today I am responding to my friend because she sent me a long voice note. That was about 5 minutes, and there was like so many points I wanted to respond to her. So much so that I was like, I think that this is worth recording, because I think that not only does my friend need to be reminded of this, I think that I need to be reminded of it when I start feeling similarly. And maybe you on the other end might need to be reminded of this too. And so this is actually going to be a part two in response to her voice note. And yeah, she was really just reflecting about her journey and where she's at, and came across a diary entry from back in her 20s and was talking about asking for clarity and talking about self-improvement and wanting to share her gifts with the world, but feeling like it needs to be compartmentalized in the way that the world has been created. And so today's voice note I'm sending to her, so I'm really wanting to tap in and be like, the point of this is like, I'm recording this as a voice note. I'm just going to chop off this beginning part because I wanted to bring you all in on the conversation and sending it to her. So let me just tap in real quick and remember like that I'm responding to her. Let's go. Sip of coffee first. Literally, y'all are here in the morning. And yeah, I was thinking about her and I was like, I'd like to get back to these voice notes so that she doesn't feel unresponded to. And yeah, and just so that it can be shared. So all right. Hey, friend. This is my second voice note in response to your prior voice note. And the part that I want to respond to is talking about loving growth, loving self improvement, loving being challenged. I first want to say, I love that. I love that. I love that. But I also hear myself in that. And even so much so, like even being in my relationship with my partner, I'm not sure if you remember, but I was telling you about how we approach growth differently. And it was at the time, the meaning I was giving it was that it was a frustrating experience, that it was frustrating that we approached growth differently. Given that this was in the beginning of the year, we've grown since then. So in our ways that we like to grow, but nonetheless, that growth was happening. But it feels very potent right now to share it with you, and a reminder of myself, and to myself and to those who may approach growth similarly, where we approach growth proactively. We're pretty forward facing, and yeah, we're just often looking to the next thing. And I first and foremost want to name I want to name that all of the most important people in my life are on the spectrum of neurodivergency. And so I think that that's important to recognize and be aware of, that we crave and delight in that stimulation. It shows up differently for a lot of different people. But I think that that's just something to name as to why we are probably seeking what we call what we call growth, or what we call self-improvement, and what we call being challenged. And I think it's our brains just wanting to be stimulated in a more, yeah, I guess a more like fulsome experience. Because the reality is, I think, you know, that's why our phones, whether neurotypical or neurodivergent, are quite the addictive device, because they provide that stimulant. But I think that what I'm observing with those I love around me who are on the spectrum is that the device itself seems like junk food. And I think we can feel that. I think most people can feel that. But I think also that it's very, it's actually, if we're not aware of it, it's actually more addictive for those who are on the spectrum of neurodivergency. And I think that's something to really be mindful about. But also realizing that it, because it can be so quickly addictive because of how quickly it stimulates us, I do think that there's another part of our brains. Obviously, I can't speak for everyone, but there's another part of our brains where we're like, this does not feel satiating. And so we're looking for that stimulation in a more satiating way. But beyond naming that, I want to talk about the self-improvement trap that I've been caught in for 20 years, and something that I'm so grateful to be in a relationship with someone who their stimulation, I have like the biggest bug in here right now. Like it's this big. I hope that it comes into the camera. Oh my gosh. Yeah. East Coast bugs are different. I don't even know what kind of bug that is. Can't even name it. Anyways, yeah, is a self-improvement trap that I got caught in for 20 years. And I'm saying this because I hear it. I hear it when I hear you in this voice note, and it being a reflection of me in some ways, when you're talking about how you recognize that you've often been a shapeshifter, and are often like scanning the room and kind of figuring out where you where you stand in it, like wanting to see like how measured up on the cool spectrum you are. And and I think that's the shape shifting part, right? Where like we're just trying to adapt to what's normal or typical. And when I met you, and when I think about you and our relationship, I see so many similarities. That one thing is that we've been journaling since the beginning of time, um since we could, given you're the only other person I have met that has as many journals as I do. So I was like, okay, maybe that's a thing. Maybe it could just be like attracting like, but I was like, okay, that's cool. But also like, yeah, you're sharing this journal entry, and I'm just like, yeah, like I hear myself in this. I hear you, but I hear myself in this. And I can hear you just being like, I'm not supposed to want these things. AK, I'm not supposed to want clarity. Like I should be able to just like accept the situation for what it is. Um and like sure, but again, I want to name that maybe that messaging, because you're talking about like playing in the grays and stuff. I know this is what we talked about in the last voice note and in the last video, but I think that's actually a neurotypical approach, to just accept the gray area, and to accept the nuance. And I say that because that's a lot of messaging that's on socials right now, which again, like I said in the last voice note and in the last video, that makes a lot of sense at a macro level. But I'm wanting to be radically acceptant of the ways that our brain works, and realizing that if it doesn't have clarity, it induces a level of stress. Because I think if we didn't know where we stood amongst our peers in the classroom or whatever, that means we didn't have clues as to how to shapeshift in that space, right? So yeah, I'm wanting to just note that, because um yeah, just wanted to really harken on that last video and be like, I'm saying this because we don't have to shapeshift to what culture is saying. If the cultural conversation right now is saying accept the grays, be in the nuance, X, Y, and Z, sure. But it's because I think their brains work differently. I think it is more than okay to be acceptance, to be like, that may work for you, but what works for me is having clarity. And like I've shared with you in the last voice note, in the last video, what works for me is having clarity so I know how to move. And neurotypical people, neurotypical brains can just accept whatever. I don't care. I'm going to accept the nuance and the gray areas. Okay, great for them, but I think we're already overstimulated with taking in so much of the world, more so than a neurotypical brain, that anything that can help us with one less decision to make, and really provide relief for us is worth asking for clarity around. Oh, we got alarms going. Here. My love, can you make sure that I'm focused? Just on my phone. Because I just stepped out of it, but I'm not sure if it's still going.
What? Sorry?
Just check if the phone, if it's still focused on me, or if you need to press my face. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yes. Do you want to press button?
Oh, is it not recording? Is it still recording?
I don't know.
I don't know. No, it's not.
Okay.
Yeah, I just had an alarm go off. So, all right, go ahead. All right, let me get to the point. See this, and this is what I'm trying to say. This is literally how my brain works, and I think how your brain works similarly, where it's like, where are we going? What are we doing? And I'm not to feel any shame about it, because I think this is going to come down to the response to the end of this video, where it's like, I'm right here. That I'm recording this voice note for you. You know that I'm also recording it in a video form, and to not feel any types of way that if there is someone on the other side watching this live stream right now, for me to hear them just get to the point already, just get to it. And it's like, okay, chill. If you're on this video and you want to get to the point, you can go find somebody else who created a video with all of the graphics and the edits and all the things, so you can go eat your popcorn. Go eat your popcorn somewhere else, because this is not popcorn content. This is slow, digestible eating content. So you can go consume your junk food, your junk content somewhere else. But that's not what I'm here for. So with that said, I don't even know how many minutes in we're in, but I don't even care. Let me get to the point of what I'm trying to say. We're talking about self-improvement. We're talking about loving growth. We love being challenged and wanting to name it as having a different kind of brain. Cool. Great. Moving on. But what I'm also hearing is this conversation around becoming. This is another cultural conversation. And I believe I said this in the last video, but it's another cultural conversation. I think I started seeing that word pop up a lot when Michelle Obama wrote her book. I think it was like 2018 or something like that, which is right 8 years ago. I almost want to look that up to be specific, but I don't need to, because whatever. It's irrelevant. That's just when I first saw it. And so I feel like, and this is the thing, I've observed that when a word and words get like injected into society, it obviously takes some time for it to be common language. 8 years later, I think it's pretty much common language. And common language in the sense that now so many people are making content around becoming. But this is where I come in with a different point of view. That isn't conform to the majority of the cultural conversation. There is the root word of becoming, which is be, just being. And this is what I was talking about when it comes to my partner, right? Becoming in the word itself is forward action, right? It's forward movement. It's movement nonetheless. And whether it's up, down, sideways, or whatever. Obviously, when you think of becoming, you think of the direction of up. But it's movement nonetheless. Being, there's no movement. It's just being still, right? So it's like imagine a plant that's becoming, right? It's blooming, it's reaching for the sun, it's reaching for the nutrients, it's reaching for the rain, it's reaching, it's wanting to grow, it's wanting to become. But what about a flower or a plant that's just being, just chilling? If the rain comes, cool. If the sun shines, cool. If the wind tries to knock me over, cool. Doesn't matter to them. They don't mind it. And given the fact that we are very similar, if not exactly the same as all of these organisms, what does that actually look like for ourselves? And I guess that's what I'm trying to say is like maybe it's not about becoming anymore. That it's just about being. And this is what I've been learning with my partner is like, which was a frustrating experience in the beginning, at least the meaning I gave it, that it was frustrating, that I was like you're not proactive in your growth, which I internalize as like you're not growing. But the reality is they're just allowing life to grow them without pursuing. And life was already happening to them. It's not ever going to happen to them. And they're going to have to change and to adapt and grow with it. And that's a very different approach. And I say this because, and I'm saying this to you specifically, because if we're constantly seeking out self-improvement, if we're constantly seeking out growth, if we're constantly seeking out challenge, which there's nothing wrong with that, at what point do we just allow ourselves to be? To recognize that we got enough sun, enough nutrients, enough rain, enough whatever, other things need to happen for us to just enjoy being. And even saying the word enjoy. When I think of the word enjoy, I don't see it as ENJOY. I see it as IN, in joy, JOY. How can I just experience joy within me by just being? And I'm wanting to say this to you specifically because at some point, and I'm saying this to myself because I'm just so grateful to have gotten to this point after 20 years, to realize that as much as it's cool to become, I think it's actually a lot more cooler to just be. And I think that, if we really want to tie this in as to why we feel pressured to grow and to become and to be challenged, I do think it's rooted in some level of capitalism. I do think it's rooted in the propaganda and the messaging and the programming in our media. Because that means that we are always looking outside of ourselves for something. We're always looking outside ourselves. We're convinced that we are not enough by just being. And so I'm saying this to you that I wish someone would have told me this before I started my personal development journey when I was 12 years old. And I know we're older now. It is what it is. But like at some point, we have to just stop and allow all of the stimulation, the self-improvement, the growing and the challenges to just catch up into our beingness, to integrate. I mean, just imagine like you're on your path and you never take a chance to step off of the path to just chill, to drink some water, to rest, to watch other people walk along the path. Um, and to just like allow all of the things that has happened to you prior to you stopping, to just really digest it and be like, all right, we gone through this town, we met these people, we did these things, we learned not to eat those berries, we learned new tools. And so like, let me now integrate it into my beingness. Now let me implement it into the way that I do things. Now let me allow it to be fully a part of who I am. But I think more importantly is to discern which parts of those experiences we want to integrate into our beingness before we move on to the next part of the journey. And I'm wanting to say this because I'm currently in a season, which I'm so grateful for, to practice the principle of be, do, and have. You know, I think the propaganda and the media has convinced us that it was backwards. And at this point, I'm convinced that we have been told that we've been told things backwards to confuse us. I think it's intentional, in terms of big business conglomerates from back in the day. Like they were like, let's teach them how to do math backwards. Let's teach them how to exist backwards. Let's teach them that if they have the thing that they want, then they can do the thing that they want, and then they can finally become the thing that they want. Okay, how has that been working for us? So for me, I'm just being reminded of like, oh, it actually starts with our beingness, by being that person who does those things so they can have those things. And so, yeah, I just want to remind you that we are human beings first before human doings. And yeah, I think the bigger question here is like, when was the last time you just allowed yourself to integrate? To just integrate all of the learnings, all of the experiences, all of the tools, all of the certifications, all of the education, all of the books, all of the courses, all of the gurus. Like, at what point did you just allow it to integrate with who you truly are? And I say this because I want to remind us that not everything we consume is meant for us, right? Let's be honest. You really want to go there? I'm going to go there. So I don't know about you. I'm gonna be honest. I ate some junk food last night. I did eat that popcorn, and I did eat some honey barbecue sun chips, and I did eat some Oreos. Okay, last night was a junk food night while watching The Bodyguard with Whitney Houston and what's his name? Crossner. What's his name? Anyways, that guy. And as much as I enjoyed it, this morning, I got rid of what wasn't good for my body, right? Not good, but it just wasn't not meant for my body. My body's like, there's no nutrients in this. So we're gonna call it as waste, and we're gonna move it through and get it out of here because we don't need it. Now, did I eat some fruit earlier that day? Yes, we did. Did we eat some protein through some eggs that day? Yes, we did. And I'm sure that is what's still in my body and went into my bloodstream and is working in all its cells and has stayed in my body. And that's the difference, right? Like, how do we even treat what we consume through our eyes and through our ears, and to have the personal discernment to say, I'm about to take this course, I'm about to take this training, I'm about to watch this video, I'm about to listen to this music. What part of this is going to be worth integrating into my beingness? And what is the rest of it that's just going to be waste? And so this goes back to the whole conversation between junk food and soul food, right? What is it that we're putting in ourselves in all areas that is nourishing our soul? Okay, and now, like, let's bring it full picture. When you're done eating soul food, how do we when you're done eating soul food, you sit back and you're satisfied. How do we do that for our souls too? How can we just already be satisfied within our souls, instead of like, my soul is not done yet. It's not done consuming or becoming. What if it just is perfect already the way that it is? And I know that's like, for me, like easier said than done. After 20 years of personal conditioning, from professional conditioning, from media conditioning, that I had to continue to keep becoming. And I am so grateful to finally be at a point in my life. Literally, it's a recent phenomenon. It's probably like 2 weeks, 3 weeks maybe, where I'm like, I'm just going to be. I'm just going to be. You know, and if I do consume stuff, it's the recognition that my brain likes stimulation. And if I want to stimulate it, then I'm going to stimulate it with discernment. I'm not going to stimulate it with junk food. I'm going to try not to, and I'm going to do my best to satiate it with soul food for my soul and for my spirit. So, yeah, sis, I am curious of what would it look like for you to just be, and I say this because even in business, I'm at that point where I'm like, yeah, I can learn all the tactics and the strategies and blah, 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 but like, are those for me? Are those for me to do? And what do I know inherently? What do I know deep in my soul? The answers to any questions I have on how to navigate business, and just realizing that business is personal. So, how do I approach the way that I do business in a personal way? So, but I think the bigger question too is, how do we allow ourselves to just be, and to know that we already have everything we've ever needed to know any answer on how to move forward? And yeah, I think the question is like, maybe it's changing our language. It's not about becoming anymore, it's just about being. So, something to think about, something to think about, something to think about. Yeah, recognizing, yes, our brains like growth, it like stimulations, it like challenges, but how is our practice in just being? Just be, which is freaking hard. Which is, well, that's the word I'm saying, which can be challenging, especially if we're in the West and they've convinced us otherwise. Yeah, so it's quite radical, if you ask me, by just being and enjoying yourself, and integrating all that we've inputted into us, and getting rid of the waste that isn't for us. So, something to think about. I hope that this voice note supports you at this point in your journey. You know, I hope that you feel encouraged to take a step off the path and to assess all that you've collected along the way, and to realize that the best travelers travel light. So if you only have a small bag, what is necessary and needed for you at this point of your journey, and leave the rest of it behind. Someone else, and that's the best part about it, someone else can use that tool, can use that certification, can use that map, can use whatever, right? And that's going to help them in their part of the journey, wherever they're at. So, something worth thinking about, and something worth practicing. So, yeah. So now, when you have three cameras going on, like, how do you end the video? Anyways, if you all have any thoughts on that, thanks for following along. Thanks for following this brain and following along with the thought process. But I'm curious, if there is something within this voice note to my friend that you're like, I think I'm going to pick that up and put that in my bag for this part of my journey. And that I'm actually going to take something out and leave it down for somebody else. Um, so that I can continue on in practicing traveling light and realizing and recognizing, um, yeah, what's for me. I know what's for me, and what's not for me in this moment, that's okay. So, all right, y'all. Thanks so much for watching. And I still have 3 more points to share with her. So if you want to check out those videos, coming soon. Probably, I would like to do it by the end of today. So, um, yeah. All right. Talk to y'all later. Bye.